face shine upon you, be gracious.
Let me say good evening to all of you. Thank you so very, very much for being here. Thank you for understanding just a little bit of the delay. We have some of the issues of the traveling in here in the city, and the orange man is in town and frustrating all the traffic. But we bless God for you being here, and we are grateful that you are here. There's going to be a more formal welcome, but I want to just welcome you to the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church, and thank you for being a part of what is going to be an amazing week here at the Tab, and certainly tonight as we celebrate this inaugural symposium. So I'm going to ask God's blessings and turn it over to Dr. Waller, who has done just such an amazing job this week, and want to appreciate her for her leadership and vision. Amen. Amen. God, I bless you and I thank you. I thank you for the opportunity to gather. We thank you, God, for a ministry that seeks to empower people in a holistic way. We thank you for those who have come. We thank you for our guests. We thank you for our speakers. And we thank you, God, mostly for the opportunity to learn and to grow. We ask your blessings upon this evening, and we pray that the strength and enthusiasm derived from this experience will be used to thy glory and honor. It is through Christ, and for his sake we do pray. Let us all say, amen, amen, amen.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, my friends. It is so good to be here on the second watch of our day. Haven't our eyes been blessed, our ears been blessed, our hearts been stirred by what God has provided for us already. And we're very excited about what we're about to experience. It is significant for us as we look back and celebrate the things that God has done for us in 25 years to invest in what God will do for us in the next 25. And as we consider the ways that we should be caring for ourselves, keeping our bodies, the things that we should be beginning to understand and to actually utilize in the day-to-day care for ourselves, this, my friends, is our reasonable act of worshiping God. So this, we continue in our worship And we welcome you to our health symposium where we will hear things, sometimes things that are new and that we haven't heard before. We'll be reminded of things, but all of it will be that which we should absorb, that which we should take in, because there's a world out there and there's a walk ahead where every bit of what we're about to hear in these honest talks, these informative talks, every bit of it we'll be able to use as we walk forward for the cause of Christ. So welcome to our evening worship service, and we are so glad that God has blessed us with brilliant women who are going to present what it is that God has given them, and in their reasonable act of worship, they are sharing it with us. So thank God for us all as we enjoy and as we get excited about what we're about to hear. God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend Barnes. You all know this is the 25-year crew. Some of you heard this before. We sat in the Olive Garden in Willow Grove and started a conversation about what we really felt God leading us to do for the ladies of our churches. And we've been rocking and rolling for 25 years, so we're grateful that you all are here with us for our 25th anniversary of Completely Yes. That's the name of our retreat ministries and such. I wanted to just share with you what we are doing now and why we're doing it. You all have seen on the screen that this is the Dr. Edith Peterson Mitchell Women's Health Symposium. Dr. Edith Peterson Mitchell was a gift, not just to this region. This woman was a game changer day one. She was a brigadier general. I mean, she did it all. And many years ago, when we were starting to do some health ministry things, Reverend Miles was sharing the story in the back. There was an institution that said they would help with the PSAs, and they dropped the ball, and he reached out to Dr. Mitchell, and she said, "Don't worry, I got it," and she made it work. And I believe it was 500 tests were done that day. So from somebody dropping the ball, we gained the gift of relationship with Dr. Edith P. Mitchell. I then had the further privilege to meet with her and share with her as a member of the Links Incorporated, the Philadelphia chapter of the Links Incorporated. Again, watched her take us to levels that were beyond even our wildest dreams. Our Health and Human Services facet of the organization works to ensure the health and wellness of us, our people. And Dr. Mitchell worked with us as a chapter and as a member and got things rolling. She did all kinds of stuff. She did radio spots. We had a regular spot on WURD, and she lent her expertise to that. When we were trying to do mammogram trucks and so forth, she made sure that happened. And Jefferson said at her portrait unveiling, which we were so blessed to be at, how they honored her and they revered her and all these great things about her. And then when she suddenly left us, Jefferson said they would continue to honor her legacy and continue to lift her up. And I'm that person's like, "Oh, you said it? We're going to make sure that it happens." And so grateful. He's sitting in the back trying to be incognito. Dr. Keith Leapart from Jefferson, thank you so much. And I'm looking at your face and I'm drawing a blank on your name. Amy, thank you from Jefferson that are here with us, who did not sometimes we let words become just words. They made sure those words became action. And so that's why we're here today. One of the things that we so want to ensure while we at Completely Yes, our women's retreat, is all about ensuring the spiritual well-being of our sisters, that we don't neglect the physical well-being. And so that's why we're here tonight. I believe this is streaming. It is streaming. So if you got somebody who's not here, you can text them and say, go to enontab.org or the Enon YouTube, Enon Facebook, all that. They can be recipients of this great gift. And it's all because of the great woman that God allowed to be here among us. For some of us, way too short, but to be the gift. And I will tell you this, Dr. Mitchell told me something. We were having a conversation. My granddaughter, Corey, was about 2, and she said she was going to be a doctor. And I was telling Dr. Mitchell, and I said, it's so crazy, like she's 2, she's saying this. And she said, she is going to be a doctor. She said, I was 3 or 4 when I said I was going to be a doctor. And she said, look at me right now. She spent time with young women. Just because I called her and asked who was considering medical school, she took time to meet with them and to encourage them. And she said to one young lady, I'll never forget, she said, it's never too late. So if you're feeling like God is calling you to med school, Dr. Mitchell said it's never too late. She encouraged someone who was in their 40s to go ahead and go to med school. So it's never too late. What God has for you will come to pass. And we're so grateful to have this opportunity to share this information with you, but to remember the life and the legacy and to celebrate that of Dr. Edith P. Mitchell. So thank you all so much for being here. Right now, we're going to have some words, and I got to get my paper. We're going to hear first from Tiffany Tavares. She is from Jefferson Health. She is going to speak to us briefly just to share some greetings. Then we will hear from Mariska Bogle, who is the Vice President of the Philadelphia chapter of the Links Incorporated. And then it is my great honor to welcome Dale Hobbs, right? Dale Hobbs, Dr. Mitchell's daughter. So in that order, we will hear from everyone. You can just come right here and take this mic.
Wow. So I'm going to share a story. There was a woman who was 24 years old. She lost her husband to gun violence. And while she had those 2 small children she had to take care of, she worked multiple jobs to keep them afloat. She had to move around in hopes for a better home and a better neighborhood so her kids can attend a better school. And they took advantage of local food banks, picking up the free turkeys on Thanksgiving, going to the library for the free backpacks. And she would drop off her kids at school so they can run to the cafeteria and get their free lunch. And in between jobs, she found time to get treatment for the cancer that was eating her body. And along that journey, she lost a lot of friends, a lot of family, and a lot of neighbors to either arrest, addiction, or violence. But more importantly, she realized how many people in her world she kept losing to hopelessness. That is why I am so proud of my mother. Because of her journey, our journey, she taught me that no matter what role, personal or professional, you take in this life, you are in a role of service. It is up to you whether or not you accept that role. It is whether or not you accept that your race, your gender, your ethnicity, who you pray to, who you love, your income, and your zip code, and sometimes your complexion will be a constant indicator of how well you will do in this life and sometimes how long you get to live it. This is why Dr. Mitchell's work resonates with me and my story. Her life was dedicated to deeply, deeply loving her people, her family, and her community, like my mother, who lived in the margins, who lacked access to opportunity, lacked everything, and more importantly, lacked thoughtfulness, inclusion, and the opportunity to simply be seen and heard and considered by the systems that she relied upon. And Dr. Edith P. Mitchell was committed to changing those systems while ensuring she saw, she heard, and considered us. By the way, it is one thing when someone asks you to be present, and it's another when someone says, we want to hear your voice. So we at Jefferson humbly thank the leadership of Enon for holding us accountable, as you mentioned, because she sure did hold me accountable on that cell phone now. Because it gives us the opportunity to honor the incredible legacy of Dr. Edith Peterson Mitchell with both our presence and our voice. At Jefferson, we know the inability to fully acknowledge the inequity in our problems with regards to healthcare will always cultivate further inequity in our solutions to address them. And that is why leaders like Dr. Mitchell are dedicated to spaces like this, because we need to uphold the idea, as you heard Sister Waller say, that is not merely an absence of disease that keeps us alive. Let this important moment, this important evening, this symposium remind you that your state of complete physical, mental, emotional, social, just wellness is just as important. More importantly, it is the center of where abundance comes from while you are living. Lastly, I did have a very fortunate opportunity of meeting Dr. Mitchell once, and we actually talked about jazz, our love of jazz together. And there's a song called Crazy He Calls Me by Billie Holiday, and there are some lyrics that reminded me of her. And in it, she sings, "The difficult I'll do right now, but the impossible will take a while." Let those lyrics carry you the way it represents Dr. Mitchell. Let it inspire your unwavering commitment to the vastness of love, especially when it is challenging and burdensome. Because her legacy is more than medicine, more than research. Her legacy is what the nucleus of what we want, what we need, what we lack, and what we thrive on. And that is, in fact, love. So on behalf of Jefferson and my fearless leader back there, Dr. Leapart, thank you for the opportunity with our acts and our words today, because all of those things come from our love for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. So nice to see you. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to share that I only got to know Dr. Mitchell, it was only a brief time when she joined the Philadelphia chapter of the Lynx. What I do remember during that time was her generosity. She was generous with her time, her resources, and she was just a really warm-hearted person. I have to sometimes call on my Lynx sisters as the vice president of the Philadelphia chapter when they don't always do the things that we are to do as members. And she hadn't attended all the required meetings because she was busy. And she shared one night when I had to make the call to her that how important being a member of the chapter was, and that it was all her full intention to stick with the chapter, do everything that she could. But she asked, could we just be a little, give her some grace, which we certainly did. But she was a warm, wonderful, generous member of our chapter who we deeply miss. And with that, I just want to say a few words from our chapter. I am a proud member of the Philadelphia chapter of the Lynx, and I'm here to deliver some remarks from our president, Lynx Zakia Black Barnett, who can't be with us this evening, on what we hope will be the inaugural Dr. Edith P. Mitchell Women's Health Symposium. Dr. Mitchell was a beloved member of our esteemed organization, who tirelessly worked to address health disparities in the Black community. Her contributions were invaluable, from ensuring the presence of mammogram trucks at the breast cancer awareness events to her sharing of health expertise on our chapter's monthly URD program. Her commitment to friendship and service endeared her to each of us. Dr. Mitchell was a shining light in our organization, and her absence is deeply missed. The Philadelphia chapter of the Lynx Incorporated is proud to partner with Enon, Tabernacle Baptist Church, and Jefferson Health in honoring the memory of this remarkable woman. The program celebrates the legacy of Dr. Mitchell, an exceptional clinician, researcher, mother, wife, and friend. Her work in breast, colorectal, pancreatic cancers, along with her focus on health equity, has left an indelible mark on our community and beyond. As we celebrate Women's History Month, let us remember Dr. Mitchell's dedication to removing barriers and promoting equity in healthcare. Thank you for joining us in honoring her memory and continuing her important work in addressing health disparities and promoting health in our community. Thank you.
My apologies. I have to look down at my paper. I'm sure many of you understand when you lose your mother. So thank you so much to the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church, Jefferson University, the Links Incorporated, and many more for hosting this event and celebrating my mother by naming this symposium in her memory. To my sister Deanna and I, Dr. Edith Mitchell was simply Ma. She was always our biggest champion. She encouraged us. She reminded us to stand tall, and she made sure we knew the power of perseverance, grit, and determination. But to so many others, she was a voice, a fierce advocate, a trailblazer, yet she was still a champion for equitable health care, especially for women. She never backed down from the right to ensure that all women, particularly women of color, had access to the care they needed and deserved. This symposium, though, symbolizes the fact that there is still important work that needs to be done. Thank you should go to all of you in this room. I speak for little girls and women across this country. We are grateful to all of you who continue this mission, who are pushing forward to create a healthcare system that uplifts, protects, and empowers women. On behalf of my family and my mom, thank you. Thank you for keeping her vision alive, for ensuring that her voice will echo beyond her years, and more importantly, for being the hands that continue this important work. God's blessing on you and this most critical work. Thank you from my family.
Thank you for just bringing that to us. We will be lifting you, always have been, but we'll continue to lift you in prayer as you journey. Before I ask Crystal Lacey, what's your name? Crystal got married, so I'm like, what's her name? Burns. Crystal Lacey Burns to come. I failed to do something in the beginning. So Pastor started us off, right? But I don't know if everybody in the room knows who he is. So the Reverend Dr. Alyn E. Waller is the senior pastor of the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church. And my husband of 36 years. I need to say this. There aren't many churches who choose to fight the fight of health disparities in our community. Lots of times, you got churches that are doing ministry, and I'm not disparaging anybody, but we have a pastor who has just opened the door to say all things, everybody. And that includes our health. So grateful for that, and grateful to really have this opportunity to say to the community at large again, we see you. We understand the struggle, and God can use medicine and knowledge along with his power to change lives, and that's what we're trying to do today. So Crystal's going to come right now and introduce our first interviewee, and then we'll be rocking and rolling.
Good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure and honor to introduce Dr. Glenda Newell Harris. She is a physician, author, speaker, and patient advocate. She has devoted her decades-long career to addressing health disparities and advocating for equal access to treatment and quality health care for all. She is a native of North Carolina and resides in Oakland, California. She received her medical degree from the University of Cincinnati School of Medicine and her Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Tufts University in Massachusetts. She is also certified in physician leadership in managing ambulatory care from the Harvard School of Public Health. She is a practicing physician in internal medicine who serves as Regional Medical Director for Yes Care, one of the foremost providers of correctional health care in the United States, where she is licensed and leads a team of physicians and other medical providers. Dr. Newell Harris was recently appointed to the United States Department of Health and Human Services Advisory Committee of the Office of Minority Health, where she will represent the health interests of racial and ethnic minority groups. She is a longstanding member of the National Medical Association. She previously served as a lieutenant in the National Health Service Corps and as a physician for Kaiser Permanente, Planned Parenthood, and Alameda Health System in the San Francisco Bay Area. She is a valued medical expert, frequently invited to participate on national and regional panels about complicated medical issues, health topics, and patient navigation. Her physician leadership in the public and private sectors for more than 25 years inspired Dr. Newell Harris to co-author the book, Focus on Your Best Health, a smart guide to practical solutions for medical problems facing healthcare consumers. In addition to her work inside the healthcare system, Dr. Newell Harris is a global leader. She is the 16th national president for the Links Incorporated and the Links Foundation, one of the nation's oldest and largest volunteer service organizations. Dr. Newell Harris is the recipient of the National Medical Association's highest honor, the Scroll of Merit. In 2016, she was also awarded the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Award for Leadership in Global Community Service by ambassadors to the United States and other members of the Martin Luther King Jr. International Salute Committee. She has also served in leadership roles within various local and regional medical societies and organizations, including as former chair of the board at Imani Community Church in Oakland, former trustee as Miss Porter School in Farmington, Connecticut, and past board chair of the School of St. Leo the Great in Oakland. Her involvement in this diverse collection of organizations inform her expertise on topics such as health literacy, patient advocacy, professional and personal leadership development, and health and well-being. Each professional and personal role she has held fuels her commitment to be a trusted voice for her family and friends, patients, and community abroad, and she brings this dedication to her newest endeavor, www.drglinda.com. Amazing, thank you.
You know, have you ever heard some bios and you read it and you're like, that is incredible. What am I doing? That is incredible. Let's give that a round of applause, truly. Yes, you have to accept and receive this love, okay? Have you received the love?
I have received the love.
Thank you
so much for that.
Thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing great today. I'm excited to be here. I feel like I'm at home. I love Enon. I've been coming here off and on for the last 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And so this is a special opportunity for me to be back in a sanctuary that I'm very familiar. So thank you, Sister Waller, for the invitation. And I'm happy to impart a few tips today to the audience.
Fantastic, and welcome back.
Thank you.
And we look forward to having you again.
All right.
So before we jump into the book, I like to start off just even one-on-one. People that know me always ask this question, and we'd love to hear it. What was the last thing that brought you significant joy?
Oh, that's an easy one.
Okay.
The birth of my last grandbaby.
Oh, nice.
I have a
Beautiful.
one-year-old grandson, and I think that, you know, I've had a lot of friends that have told me, you know, when you get to that side of your life, that there's nothing like it. And so I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they are the joy of my life right now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, many blessings to them. Because clearly, if you have enough energy to do all that stuff that was in your bio, you have some energy for them grandkids,
They keep
right?
me rolling.
That's right. That's
They keep
right.
me rolling.
So tell us, what was the motivation to write this incredible book?
Great. Would love to answer that question. So my co-author and I have been friends for many years. And we used to have conversations about really being translators for people in their medical journeys. And we would get telephone calls where we were in California to call Texas, New York, Connecticut. This was long before HIPAA, long before you had to get permission to discuss people's health care. And we have families that were coming to us and friends that were coming to us saying, you know, I don't understand what's happening with Auntie Mary or Cousin Sue. And then to be really personal, I've had to serve in this role as an advocate for my own family. So we just sort of, we tried to talk to as many people as we could in our area, but we recognized when we would travel that the problem was nationwide. It wasn't just in Oakland. It wasn't in the Bay Area. People were challenged by their conversations with their providers across the board. And so after exhausting our own personal network, we just thought the best way to do it was to put the information in a book. And then that way we'd be able to share it with everyone that would want to read it, that you would then be able to have the tools that you need to be able to navigate through this medical maze. Because the healthcare system is complex and it's broken.
You know what? Not just the system, but some people.
Well, and you know,
Complex
that's
and broken.
another, that's another piece of it. When you come to a health encounter, you are already compromised.
That's right.
You're sick.
That's right.
You're scared.
That's right.
And what you really need is a warm, fuzzy environment on the other side that's going to be able to embrace you, reassure you that things are going to be all right, or we can treat it, or, you know, this is something that's no big deal. But hospitals are, you know, they smell like alcohol. Everybody's wearing light green or light blue. There's not a lot in there that's fuzzy and warm. You don't feel trickling waters. You don't see the ocean. It's a scary place to be.
It is.
And if you've ever, like I have, been on the other side of that table, it's a scary place to be. When you're sitting on the other side waiting for somebody to tell you what your destiny is going to be in terms of your health care and how they're going to be able to help you navigate it.
That's right. No, I appreciate you actually kicking off the purpose of the book as serving as a translator. I know that I served in that capacity for my mother when she was going through breast cancer. I'd sit in the room with her and I'd look at her and I can see that, you know, that blank look, and like, they didn't hear, understand a word that they said. And so I had to serve as that advocate. And the first thing I thought of was that not everyone has the opportunity to have someone in the room with them. So for you to produce this book with your co-author is a tool. So to that end, how would you advise that these incredible women in the room use your book as a tool?
So great question. We focus in the book in 3 areas: effective communication, savvy navigation leads to appropriate advocacy. So it's simple. There are 3 chapters: communicate, navigate, advocate. We believe if you can communicate and if you can navigate, then you can advocate. But in the absence of the first 2, you're lost. So in the book, we talk about effective communication. So, you know, and communication can be in a lot of ways. There's verbal and then there's nonverbal communication. And we talk about watching the provider. Sometimes as providers, our nonverbal communication will make you want to walk out of the room.
That's right.
And so then how do you expect then that you're going to be able to give that doctor the most intimate responses to your, because we ask you everything, including what color is your underwear.
That's right.
We don't leave any stone unturned in terms of asking you questions, and we expect you to tell us that. So communication is critical in all different ways. We talk to you in there about how to talk so the doctor will listen, because we do tune things out. Sure. I mean, generally within the first 2.5 to 3 minutes of a visit, the doctor's already figured out what he or she thinks you have. Most of the time we're right, but sometimes we're not, because we have preconceived notions and ideas and we think you're just like everybody else. So communication is important. Navigation is important. You've got to be able to understand where are the centers of excellence for heart disease and stroke in your community. You don't want to go with stroke symptoms to a facility that doesn't have a stroke center. So that's up to you to figure out where that is. You've got to figure that out with your community and with your health plan. And then the whole notion of advocacy. You just never need to go to the doctor or nurse practitioner or any type of care provider without someone with you. You're sick, you don't feel well, you don't remember. I can't tell you how many times I've had it. I'm gonna play on the men a little bit. Reverend Waller, you're almost the only one in here, and I know you don't do this. But the men will come in and will say, well, have you been eating? Oh yeah, I've been eating. And the wife will say, no, he hasn't eaten in 3 days. Or is he sleeping? Oh yes, I get sleep every night. No, he's up walking the floor every night because he's in so much pain. The men, just for whatever reason, and and women can do the same, because we press and push our way through pain, because we're black women and we can do it all, and somebody keeps telling us we can do it all. But we need to be able to have someone right there with us in the room that can tell the story for us, and also to listen. Because when the doctor may have to give you that unfortunate diagnosis of cancer, then everything else goes out the window. You don't hear anything else the doctor has said. If it's treatable or not treatable, all you hear is cancer, and you think it's a death sentence. So you need to have someone else there with you. You need someone to be able to say, hey, come back in here. She's sick. You can't leave her like this. And I can't tell you how many times that I have had to continue to do this for my loved ones, and the doctors all know that I'm a doctor in the room, but it doesn't matter. And that was the other reason why we were motivated to write the book, because we said, if this is what's happening to our family, what's happening to everybody else?
That's right. That's right. Wow. So you heard it here. Communicate, navigate, advocate. All right. Well, there goes your new slogan. Let's add it to our email signatures. I think we need it all. So I would love to hear what are some of the, I wouldn't even say feedback, kind of the takeaways that other people have told you that they've received from the book that you weren't expecting.
Okay, well, we have a section in there that, and I shouldn't maybe give this as the first one, but I just had to do this in the last month myself. We have a section in there on firing your doctor. Now let that soak in for a minute. This is a person that you're coming to share the most intricate details of your life. You're vulnerable, you're scared, but it's really important that you understand you are paying that bill. Were it not for you, they wouldn't be there, okay? And the other thing is that they need to be focused on you, not the last 3 patients, okay? I actually had a doctor recently make a recommendation of treatment for me, and I accepted the plan, and I guess I made a phone call back to the office to ask a question, only to find out that the doctor was trying to reach me because she had made a mistake. Oh, wow. She had not read everything correctly, and then wanted to tell me that now my treatment plan was a different treatment plan. I'm stunned because I'm thinking that she's calling to return my phone call, and I get this kind of information, okay? Same doctor who asked me to go to the pharmacy and get a medication refilled, and when I got there, there was no medicine to refill. So, my feeling was that doctor wasn't focused on me.
That's correct.
Now, I know she had another 1,000, but I just say, just read my chart for 3 minutes before you walk in the room. Just focus on me for just a second. Just make me feel special for a minute, because that's how mistakes happen. You think this is one patient, it's another patient, and many of my friends say, but Glenda, did she know you were a doctor? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And it should never matter. So that's one thing. You can fire your doctor, but remember, it does work both ways. If you're too inappropriate, they can fire you too, okay? Point 1. Point 2, getting second opinions. A lot of people have concerns and reservations about how do they approach a situation with a second opinion. And I say that if you have a condition and a doctor gives you a treatment plan and you're really not comfortable with it, you're just not sure, you should be able to say, I just like to talk to another specialist about this. A doctor should not be intimidated by you wanting to get confirmation or not about a situation. And in 99.9% of cases, your insurance company should pay for it. Now, let me give you a little tip. You don't want to go to the doctor in the same office, okay, as the one that gave you. You at least need to go 30 miles down the road, okay, because you want to get some semblance of, hopefully a decision made by someone else. So that's another point. The other thing is people come to the doctor with, and by the way, let me just shorten this by saying Every chapter of the book has tips in the back. So there are a list of tips in the back, about 10 or 12 tips, that if you really don't have time to read the chapter, just scan the tips. And then when you have time, you can go back for communicate, for navigate, and for advocate. The other thing I really think I want to emphasize today before we close, and that is to empower you to know that you can speak up for yourself and ask questions. There is nothing godlike about a doctor. Nothing, because we all know who the almighty doctor is, who never lost a case. And so that's what we also have to remember, since this is a completely yes weekend.
That's right.
I have to emphasize that is critical as well. But you need to feel like it's okay to ask the doctor a question, because after all, it's your body. You need to fully understand why you're being asked to do things. You need to fully understand, if there is an explanation, how did this happen to me? How did I get this way? How can I avoid?
That's right.
And if there's not enough time in that office visit, book another one. Just book another appointment. You know, you can't buy into a treatment plan if you don't feel like it's the right thing to do. So you have to be comfortable with the plan. You have to be able to explain, or you should be able to explain it to your family members. You need to understand and know what your medicines are. We talk about that in the book too. Please don't say, I take a little green one and I take a little red one, and then I have one that I cut in half, and I take that only Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. You need to know, I take lisinopril, I take Lantus insulin, I'm on levothyroxine, 0.1. You need to know the name. And if you don't know, put it on a little card and stick it with your driver's license. You want to be able to know the names of your medications, because when you get to Hawaii and you've left your medicines at home, you need to walk into Walgreens and be able to tell the guy what it is that you really need, because the little green one and the little red one won't work.
It is not. It's not going to work.
No, it won't.
So first of all, we have to thank you for providing us with such tangible action items to walk away with. She talked about being able to fire your doctor. You have to ask questions, because at the end of the day, the one thing that you just said that made me think about this just now is that Black and brown women already feel invisible in many communities, in our society, in our workplaces. And so for you to get into that room where you have to be the most vulnerable, most transparent, physically showing even your body in that way, you don't want to be invisible. So don't contribute to the invisibility that you already feel. This is an opportunity to gain that power, and your book enables us to be able to do that thoughtfully and respectfully. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Amen. Amen. So we're going to let Dr. Glenda and Tiffany come down. I just want you to know that we will have some questions and answers. You got some burning questions. Now, y'all know how I do questions, right? You're going to write them down. And then we got a team of folk that will vet them. And then your answers may happen, okay? We good? Okay. So if you have a question, and it could be fresh on your mind right now, that you want to ask Dr. Glenda, Minister Francina and Reverend Narissa are going, if you raise your hand and you need an index card, that was awesome. By the way, that was awesome, right? Like, incredible. How many of you knew you could fire your doctor? How many of you have been brave enough to do it? Somebody said 2 of them. But wanted to make that clear. So if you got questions, raise your hand. They'll bring you a card and a pen. Narissa, there's one over there, and then one back there. And then we will have a period. If your questions do not get answered, it isn't that we decided they were not worth being addressed. You may have the opportunity when we go up for the book signing. Now, I don't want you to get over there and ask, well, last week, and if you have a question, ask the question. Y'all know me, right? So, I have the wonderful privilege of sharing something with you all about Alloy Women's Health. So, Alloy Women's Health is a direct-to-consumer menopause healthcare company. They offer education, expertise, and safe, science-backed solutions for perimenopause and menopause symptoms, skin care, and sexual health. Treatment plans are customized, and everything is delivered with free shipping straight to your door. Alloy members get unlimited follow-up care with their menopause-trained physician through the duration of their active prescription and access to community through member support groups led by Alloy Community Manager Rachel Hughes, and more from the convenience of their home. As a part of this event, Alloy has set up a special discount code for attendees for half of a consultation fee with Alloy Women's Health, or $25 off any purchase of skin, hair, sexual wellness, or gut health products. All you have to do is to apply Enon 25 at checkout. So Alloy Women's Health, of which Dr. Sharon Malone is their chief medical advisor. So shout out to Dr. Malone for giving us access like that. You know, and sometimes we want to pretend menopause is something we don't talk about. If you haven't read this sister's book, we better talk about it. And now that you have from Dr. Glenda, and you're going to get her book and the information about how you advocate for yourself, I don't know, Brother Lee Part, if they're going to be ready for what these sisters have been armed with because of what Jefferson put on. So when the doctors at Jefferson say, these women keep coming in, and we're going to point to you. He said, don't fire your Jefferson doctor. But we're grateful now to have Sister Janita Connor, Reverend Janita Connor, to introduce Dr. Sharon Malone. And I'm sorry, Dr. Samantha Butts will be conducting the interview.
Good evening, ladies. How are you? Good evening. I do have the pleasure and the honor to introduce to you Dr. Sharon Malone. Dr. Sharon Malone is a nationally known expert in women's health and a New York Times best-selling author, Grown Woman Talk. She is the chief medical advisor at Alloy Women's Health, a telehealth company that focuses on women over 40. Before joining Alloy, Dr. Malone was a partner at one of the oldest and most successful OBGYN medical practices in Washington, D.C. She is a board certified by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and certified by the North American Menopause Society as a certified national menopause practitioner. Throughout her professional career, she has been active in advocating for reproductive rights, reducing teen pregnancy, and eliminating healthcare disparities. Dr. Malone has been honored with the Health Award from the Black Women's Agenda, Inc., and was named on the 2024 Forbes 50 Over 50 list. Dr. Malone is the youngest of 8 children. During World War II, her parents, both of whom were raised in the rural South, moved to Mobile, Alabama during the migration of the farms to cities. She has seen health care from both sides. As a physician and a child of parents who negotiated health care for themselves and their families in a Jim Crow South. Despite living next door to 2 hospitals, preventative health care was never a part of her family's life. As a result, Dr. Malone's mother would lose her life to colon cancer, diagnosed too late for treatment. This searing life experience has informed how Dr. Malone has chosen to practice medicine and brought focus to the health care issues she has chosen to pursue. In addition to her interest in women's health, Dr. Malone is an avid reader, an amateur genealogist, and a lover of music. She is married to the former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder Jr., and lives in Washington, D.C. They are the parents of Maya, Brooke, and Eric III. Thank you.
I just got to let you all know. Is your mic on? No. There are 1,740 people watching this on the stream. So it's not just the information that's going out in here, it's going out. So you should know, quiz your friends. Make sure they paid attention.
Hey, thank you very much. It's a complete honor to be on a stage with you, Dr. Malone, and to have an opportunity to get to know you and ask you some of the most pressing questions about women's reproductive health and how women age through their reproductive life course. My name is Samantha Butts, and I have the honor of doing this interview with you. We've heard a little bit about your backstory and how you came to medicine, some of the outstanding places you have been in your career and trained. I'm wondering if you can give us a little bit of insight about why menopausal issues for women, has that become a passion in your life and something that you wanted to focus on?
Well, first off, I want to say thank you to Pastor and to the First Lady Waller. This has been a fantastic experience from soup to nuts. This is my first time here at Enon, and I hope it will not be my last. So thank you so much for inviting me and for all of you for coming out. Well, let me tell you a little bit about why I got interested in menopause. When I started practice 30 years ago, I had I started in OBGYN, but I sort of inherited the practice of two older physicians who had been in practice for 30 years before I got there. And so generally, as a young doctor right out of residency, you're young, your patients are young, and then you all age together, and then I probably would have gotten to menopause about 20 years later in that journey. But from the moment I started practice, I had 18-year-olds and I had 80-year-olds and I had 50-year-olds and everybody in between. So I had to get up to speed about menopause, how to treat menopause, what it means. But more, I think, what I have found over the years is that we spend a lot of time in OBGYN focusing on women in their reproductive years. We're either figuring out how to help you not get pregnant, stay pregnant, have a baby, and then after then you just fall off the edge and nobody really talks to you anymore about what that means. And that's a significant portion of your life. Let me just say, women, if you are lucky to live long enough, you will go through menopause. 100% of us will. And you will spend anywhere from 40 to 50% of your life after menopause. And that is a big chunk of life that most of us enter having no knowledge about because we haven't really had conversations with our parents, with our elders, or anything about what to do. So that was really what got me interested in this, because I realized, I lost my mother when I was very young, and it was a conversation I never had. But there is also the realization that, judging from my older sisters, that even if my mother had lived, we still wouldn't have had that conversation because we don't talk about it. We endure it. And I think it's time, way past time, that we get over that.
It's interesting. I've heard it said, and I'm sure you have too, that currently menopause is having a moment, which is probably a bit of an insult to the 2 million women in this country who enter menopause every year, and to the outstanding practitioners like you who take care of it. Keeping in mind that menopause has always had a moment, can you talk us through a little bit about the stages of reproductive aging, as you've discussed in your book, what women can expect, and what they need to be thinking about as issues to bring to their doctor and talk about?
Yes. Now, let me say, there is a lot, if any of you are on social media or if you pick up a magazine or anything, menopause is really hot right now. And everybody's talking about it. Yeah, pun intended.
Yeah, no pun.
Pun intended. Halle Berry has screamed out that she's
Right.
having menopause, and everybody's having menopause. It's
Right.
like, yeah, girl, we know. Okay, you know, you're 58 years old, and you act like you just discovered that. But that's all right. That's all right. We're talking about it in a way that we have not talked about before. And you know, I think that many of us don't have any idea when it happens, what happens, and then what are you going to do about it when it does. And I think that nothing is more acutely true about that when it comes to black women. Because there's this thing that, you know, I learned about menopause when I was in medical school, and there are a lot of younger doctors who haven't. Let's just say if you have a doctor who graduated from medical school or residency anytime after 2002, so in the past 23 years, they probably didn't learn a lot about it. So they're not going to talk about it, right? But let me explain to you, because most of you don't understand. I told you that you're going to spend anywhere from 40 to 50% of your life in your post-menopausal years. Well, what is it? Well, there are a couple of stages that you need to be aware of. And perimenopause is a word that a lot of you may not have heard. And perimenopause simply means is that phase of life when you are making the transition to menopause. So, okay, well, why didn't anybody tell me about that? When does that start? Well, perimenopause starts any time between, say, let's say it can start as early as your mid-30s, or it can start in your mid-40s. But watch this when I say this. Perimenopause starts when women are still having periods. So you say, okay, well, it starts in my mid-30s. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that all the symptoms that we associate with menopause, and everybody knows the hot flash, you know, hot flash and mood swings and night sweats and irritability and depression and brain fog and, can we say this in church? Vaginal dryness, painful sex.
I think you just said it.
Okay, sorry. I should have asked the pastor first. Are we good? Okay, we're good. All of those things that we think start happening at menopause start happening in perimenopause. And that's what's confusing for a lot of women, because they think, wait a minute, I'm having hot flashes here and I can't remember, you know, I can't remember my daughter's teacher's name. And you go to see your doctor, and remember, I told you, if your doctor graduated in the past 23 years, they don't know anything about menopause, and they go, oh, okay, well, it's not menopause. It can't be. Oh, you had a period last month? Not menopause. Not true. The transition starts anywhere between 35 and 45, and a good data point for you to know, it doesn't always track one-to-one, but it's probably a good idea if you still have a mother or an older sister who's still with you and can tell you, say, how old were you when you had your last period? Because here's the thing for black women. Even though I was taught in the days that, oh, black women don't really have as many symptoms. I don't know why they thought that, but that was the story. Black women tend to, I told you that period between being in perimenopause and menopause is when you've had your last period, and then there are no more. Well, you don't know when you've had your last period until you look back after a year and you go, okay, I didn't have another one. Then congratulations, you're in menopause. But anything up to that is fair game. How long does it take to get from that, when you start perimenopause to menopause? Anywhere from 4 to 10 years. 4 to 10 years before you get to menopause. For black women, what we know now is that black women are closer to 10 years of being symptomatic with all the symptoms that you think of that are associated with menopause. They can start in perimenopause, and then you get to 50, 49, whenever you have your last period, and you can have symptoms for another 10 years after that. Well, let me just say this. That's a lot of suffering. That's a lot of suffering. That's a lot of sleeplessness. That's a lot of not being your best self. And when you go to your doctor to complain, not getting relief. And to me, that's the travesty, because I feel like that, you know, we know how to treat menopause. We know what the most effective treatment is, and it is hormone therapy, estrogen or progestin therapy for women, or just estrogen alone if you had a hysterectomy. But so many of us are afraid because of the things, and let me just say, you didn't make it up. You know, most people think of hormone therapy as being associated with breast cancer. It's not, but that I go into details about why that misconception has persisted for 23 years. It means that it makes me sad. It really makes me sad when I see women who are suffering and they can't get relief. And to know that not being treated for your hot flashes, not being treated for your lack of sleep, leads to a lot of other long-term health complications after menopause. You know, hot flashes are not funny, and they're not benign. And so I say, do not ignore them. If you have them and you are miserable, you deserve to be treated. And you do not have to wait until your last period to start treatment. So understand that for those 10 years, while you're waiting on that last period, you get to intervene when you are bothered by your symptoms. And I think that that is what's been a problem and what's really held a lot of women up, is because they think that all the things that you take off the table, and you know how we do, we get a lot of our medical advice from our friends and our hairdresser, and someone will say, girl, don't take that. You know that stuff is, here. But then they will give you a bag of vitamins or some things, or take this that don't work and have no efficacy whatsoever, and you don't even know what's in it. But that's how we get our medical advice. It's usually peer-to-peer. It's not from medical professionals who actually know how to treat menopause.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because in the book you talk a bit about the supplement industry, the vitamin industry. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of your sense about how widespread the use is, and how have we gotten here, and how can we sort of help patients understand the full breadth of what treatments are and what's in their best interest and not?
Okay, I will say this, and I will say this, and this is not, a lot of things that I say in my book, I want to be abundantly clear. It's just not my opinion. These are the opinions of what's now the Menopause Society. They used to be the North American Menopause Society, which is really a consortium of different medical groups that will all review the evidence and say, okay, this is the best, these are our best practices for how do we prescribe. And what they have come up with is, and I will say this again and again, the most effective treatment for the symptoms of menopause is hormone therapy. Estrogen and progestin if you have a uterus, estrogen alone if you don't. And that is period, end of sentence. Now, you can spend a lot of money on a lot of things, but let me tell you a little bit about the supplement market. A lot of the supplements are all of the supplements are unregulated by the FDA. If you buy a supplement, and it's not to say all of them are trash. There are some that is helpful. Take calcium if you can't drink milk, and take some vitamin D. Nothing wrong with that. But supplements that are marketed as if they are treating something, no. They have zero proof about that. So if you think taking this supplement is going to make you not have Alzheimer's, no, there's no data. And they don't even have to prove it. That's the thing I want you to know. So most supplements are harmless. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Because anybody has a supplement line, and they say, oh, take mine. And if you're spending $75, $100 a month on supplements, don't do that. Don't do that. Just know that if you are spending more on supplements than you would spend on having a healthy diet, because supplements are meant to do just that, supplement. Supplements don't treat anything. And if you keep that thought in mind, I think you can sort of say, you know, I need calcium. Do I need the $50 calcium pills that a celebrity is selling, or can I just go to GNC and Costco or get some calcium pills? Go to GNC or Costco. Okay.
Dr. Malone, there's a lot of terms out there that I think make the landscape of hormones a little bit confusing, even for those of us who work in this space. I'm wondering if you can clarify for the audience today terms like bioidentical, compounded, and what is the difference? And when you counsel a patient about hormone therapy, how do you start to introduce the different types of hormone approaches?
Okay. There are, you know, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time in the weeds on this, but let me just say, when something is bioidentical, when you can take estrogen and progesterone and it can be bioidentical or non-bioidentical, and all that means is that the bioidentical hormones, if you drew them on a chalkboard, it would have the same chemical composition as the hormones that your ovaries make. So when you're talking about estrogen, you're saying estradiol. That's the same one your ovaries make. Progesterone is the same thing your ovaries make. That's all it is about bioidentical. Bioidentical doesn't have anything to do with how it's made, because compounded hormones just means that somebody is making it, especially, they're not regulated, again, the same way that drugs that you get from the CVS or Rite Aid, those drugs are FDA approved. The compounded ones are not. And that's why you have to be careful with things like pellets, with things that you're buying directly from doctors' offices, because they are not inspected the same way as commercially available bioidentical hormones. And let's be clear, I want to say that, again, and we won't get in the weeds, but compounded ones, be careful. They're always more expensive, not covered by your insurance, when you can get a bioidentical hormone that is a generic, like what we have at Alloy, because we want you to be able to have access to that, but it should not, again, break the bank for being able to get access to hormones.
One of the most important parts of the book that I think is important on its face, but especially important for our audience today, is your introduction of the issue of disparities in menopausal health, how menopause is experienced by Black women differently, and I'm hoping you can share your thoughts on that with the group.
Yes, there is a study that had been on, it started in the 90s, and it's called the Study of Women Across the Nation. And basically they did a survey, over 3,000 women, very sort of diverse population of women, and they just observed. They just asked them over years, well, how's it going? They start before menopause and follow them through the menopause process. And just in asking in this survey, what they found, this is how we know that there are differences in how menopause is experienced for Black women and for white women, for Asian American women, for that matter. And what they have found, that Black women tend to have their last menstrual period, which is what we define as menopause, earlier. The average age is 51. It's south of 51 for Black women. The symptoms that we associate with menopause, such as the hot flashes, the mood swings, the night sweats, the sleeplessness, the depression even, they're more severe in Black women than there are in white women. And those symptoms last longer. So if I say that menopausal transition or perimenopause lasts anywhere from 4 to 10 years for Black women, it's closer to 10 years. And I'm sure all of you, and maybe some of you in this room, know that even after you have had your last period, I have women in their 60s and 70s that are still having hot flashes and still can't sleep. So the experience is different. But not only is the experience of menopause itself different, when you show up at a doctor's office, and let me say this, all women are underserved in this menopause space because doctors don't know how to treat it. And it's a conversation that takes a while to have, and doctors got 5 to 7 minutes, and you can't do all of menopause in 5 to 7 minutes. when women show up, and this is what I want, if there's a message that I want you to have, is that as Black women, we take on suffering as that's just what you're supposed to do. You know, we take suffering, and women generally, you know, we have spent a lifetime of suffering through things. Cramps, PMS, migraines, bad relationships, depression, you name it. And we have gotten so accustomed to suffering that we don't even think we're supposed to complain about it. So when a Black woman start having these symptoms of menopause, and you've talked to your friends, and they say, "Oh, girl, just get a fan," turn that air conditioner down, and your husband can't sleep, all of that. That you don't bring it up, so your doctor's not going to bring it up. Okay, so that's number one. You're only half as likely to even bring up these symptoms when you have them. Even when you bring them up, you're only half as likely to get those symptoms addressed by a prescription for something that will help with that. And worse still, for the women who do get a prescription, they're only half as likely to take it, even when they get it home. And you have to say, well, what is that? All right, so you were suffering, I gave you a prescription, and I know this for a fact, because I'll give people prescriptions, they'll come back a year later, I'm like, well, how are you doing? And they go, oh, I didn't take it. And I said, well, why? We had this discussion because we negatively sort of influence each other. Because I've had that conversation with you, but then you go talk to your girlfriend or your hairdresser, and they'll say, girl, I don't take that. Or, worse still, I didn't even have any hot flashes. You go talk to your mother, and she'll say, I didn't have any. I don't even know what you're talking about. Because they forgot, okay? They had them. But 80% of women will have hot flashes. Okay, and if you're in the 20% of women that don't have them, I say, God bless you. Do not let your good fortune get in the way of someone else's journey that's not yours. And so we have to really think about this. And I write about this in my book, is the whole thing about the concept of suffering. What is it about how we as women are socialized to suffer, to not ask for help? Even when help is offered, we won't take it. And that's the mindset that I really want to change. Because I want you to understand that, menopause is not something to dread or to fear or to think that it is just on the next step on the, you're on, you got your foot on a banana peel, and next thing you know, you're in a wheelchair. No, that's not it. It is, you should have the expectation throughout your life that you should feel good. You should feel good. You should be healthy. You should be strong. And you should be free from disease. That should be your expectation. And a lot of the things that I talk about in my book are to that end. Because even though I do talk a lot about menopause, because that's my thing, I spend a lot of time in the book, and I want you to understand that I talk about everything. The book, What to Expect When You're Expecting? Okay, well, my book is What to Expect If You Expect to Live Beyond 40. And so we talk about heart disease. I talk about chronic hypertension and stress and obesity and, things that you have to look out for Alzheimer's. And I don't say this just to say, oh, look at all the terrible things that are going to happen to you. I'm saying it to say, these are the things that could happen to you. And these are the things that you need to do to make sure that you push that tendency off as long as humanly possible. And I think that for so many of us, we have accepted poor health, and unhealthy aging. It's just a part of that. That just goes hand in hand with getting older, because we've watched our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunties, and we see that trajectory. And in a lot of instances, it's not good. And what I'm saying to you is that that does not have to be your journey. And what I want you to know, all the things that you need to know, not just about menopause, because we talk about all the things that tend to show up over 40, and the things you can do to make sure that, just as Dr. Glinda was saying, how to be a good advocate for yourself. Because, when I was doing the proposal for my book, I thought about, I had a couple of titles in mind that got shot down. And the first one was A Love Letter to My Sisters. That was my title for the book. And that's why every chapter in the book starts with a Dear Sis letter.
Why do you think that got shut down?
Pardon?
Why do you think that title got shut down?
I don't know why editors do stuff. They was like, well, that doesn't sound like a health book. I'm like, well, okay, that was my health book, but, I got shut down. But it's the information, because I wrote the book not just as a doctor that's finger wagging and telling you, do this, do that, whatever. I just like Dr. Glinda, I have spent a lot of time navigating healthcare for my family. And these are smart people, my family, my friends of friends, who have good insurance, who are smart and know things. But I realized, I'm like, you don't know this, or somebody didn't tell you. So I said, this is the stuff I want you to know. And I want you to know that it's written not just as a doctor, this is as a sister, as a friend, as a daughter. All the things I would want you to know. It is the information I wish my mother had. Because I think if my mother had known what the signs and symptoms were of colon cancer, if she had known when to engage with a medical professional, she didn't have to die. And that's what I'm saying. I want you to know, I don't want you to walk away from anything in my book to say, ooh. No, I want you to walk away and say, oh, well, colon cancer. There's a whole chapter on cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, uterine cancer, or endometrial cancer, all of which disproportionately affect Black women. We don't get more cancer. We get the cancer at the same rate as everybody else, but we die more from it. And why is that? Because, again, we don't have, just educating everyone to know what the signs and symptoms are and how to screen for it. These are things that are preventable. And I want you to have that same, you should walk away from this and feel empowered, because you're like, okay, now I know what to do. And again, if my doctor doesn't suggest this, well, let me bring it up. I even give you questions to ask. So if you go in there and you say the same thing, you're like, well, did you say this? Well, these are the list of things that you need to get answers to. And, I think from that perspective, and I think that, the book was really written with love. And, and the other title, when they said, okay, not that. And I said, well, okay, how about this one? No One's Coming to Save You. And they said, that's a little dark. And I was like, well, I said, that's true. I said, that is dark, but it's true. And that's what I want you to say. Take control and understand that, you have the ability to change the trajectory of your life. And don't let your family history, you should know it, by the way. You should know your family history and ask about it. But that doesn't mean that that's your destiny. Let me just say, the health course that you will be on, and for many people in this country, is more determinative by your zip code than by your genetic code. So, we've got to do better, and I think that there are the two big messages. There's the individual advocacy that Dr. Glinda and I talk about what are the things that you can do, and then there's also what I call the big A advocacy, which are things that collectively we have to understand that have been unaddressed in our community. Because let me just say this, healthcare disparities have been present for as long as we have measured healthcare disparities. You know what hasn't happened? We haven't done anything about them. We describe them, we look at it, we say, ooh, 2 times this, 3 times this, 4 times this for Black women. And we have yet to really gather the will, the collective will to do something about it. And that's where I said, this is where it's going to require a little bit of, political will, and I say political, not partisan, but we've got to be able, if you don't know that that's the problem, if you don't know that a lot of the things that affect us are things that societally need to be addressed, and I walk away from the narrative that says that there's a constant drumbeat that says that the disparity that black women experience is because you're black. Do not believe that. Do not believe that. The disparities exist because that lets everybody off the hook, because then it's your problem, something you didn't do. Right. Oh, if you would just stop perming your hair, if you would just stop doing this, if you would just stop, and I'm like, okay, no. We have a fairly good idea of the things we can address. And if you live in a community, if you live next to a toxic waste dump, then guess what? Your health outcomes are not going to be good. And that's policy. That has nothing to do with genes.
Dr. Malone, thank you so much. I could ask about 7 more questions, and I have them all on my phone, but I want to leave time for Q&A, book signing, and again, just want to thank the audience for coming and experiencing the expertise of both of our outstanding physician experts. I think we're going to transition to Q&A now, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Honor.
Thank you all.
Thank you. I'm getting texts watching online. They're like, this is amazing. So thank you all so very much. We're going to transition. If you have a question, still, I've got some here. And the way we're going to do this is I've got a bunch for you, Dr. Glenda, and then Dr. Sharon will do your questions. So the first question I have for Dr. Glenda is, how does one transfer their medical records effectively and efficiently, and what do they ask, and would insurance have to be a part of that?
Great question. Once you've made the decision to identify a physician, that physician is going to want your medical record. It may require a signature, a medical record release. I think in my situation, they didn't ask me for anything. I just said, send it over, and it happened. But generally, it's a release of medical records. And of course, the new provider needs to have that information, and there's no involvement with your insurance company around that. But I will caution you that when you are picking a different doctor, from a financial standpoint, it's a good idea to make sure that that doctor's in network from a financial perspective. We all want to say, oh, it's okay, I can afford it. But, trust me, when those bills just keep coming in, there really may be an in-network doctor that you want to pick. But medical record release should be relatively smooth.
Thank you. This is from a young person, because they're approaching 40 and wondering how to ensure that they get on and stay on a path for good health.
The basic tenets of good health are the same, regardless of whether we're talking about menopause or cancer or cardiovascular disease or anything else. And that is regular exercise, get a good night's sleep, watch your diet, watch your weight, minimize alcohol, don't smoke, and try as best you can. You can't always eliminate all the stress in your life, but you can at least minimize how you react to that stress. Life is life. Wouldn't it be nice, if I could just turn off the TV and never turn it back on again? But that's not real life. You got to be able to figure out, okay, what are the ways that I'm going to at least engage and make sure that if you are feeling overwhelmed or stressed or depressed, because that was one of the other things that came out of the SWAN study, is interestingly enough, it said that black women, when asked about whether or not they were depressed, they don't answer affirmatively as often as when they list the symptoms of depression, And they lift them like, oh, you got that, you got that, you got that. So a lot of times we don't even recognize it. And so when you don't recognize the things that you're going through, you don't really know how to engage. And sometimes we just got to, as you say, lay it down, and it's not the thing. And whether you get that in counseling or prayer or meditation or yoga, whatever it is that you need to do. And those tenets, those few things that you have to do are the same. I don't even ask, you don't have to do 6 different things for a different, condition. It's all the same. So the healthier you are, when you enter perimenopause, sometimes the better you'll do. You'll be able to control your weight better. But then sometimes you do all those things and you're still bothered or you're symptomatic. And don't feel like you failed, because you're still doing a world of good by doing those things, even if you have to go on and get other care.
Thank you. As it relates to advocating for others, if someone is of age and somewhat capable of speaking for themselves, how do you go about getting in the room to ensure that the information shared is A, understood, and B, can be actionable?
That's a really great question. I think that all of us think, once we reach the age of 18, we've got it. We know everything, and nobody really needs to tell us anything. But I think I'll speak now as a wife. I think it's important that you check in with your husband when he goes to the doctor. Because one thing I do know, I love men, but they don't talk a lot about this kind of stuff. And you really want to know, and you want to advocate for your spouse as well. So, it's a bit of a delicate balancing act. I mean, it's almost like you say, well, how do you stay married 41 years? I don't know, a lot of help from Jesus. But you've got to figure out a way to make that loved one understand that your being there is supportive. It's really in a supportive role. I mean, I think all of us, as we age, we still think we have it going on. But as your parents age, you need to kind of be there or check in or get copies of the discharge summaries and find out what's going on. I think when your loved ones are sick, it's an automatic, it's a non-negotiable. You don't go to the emergency room by yourself, and you are in that room because they're sick. But oftentimes those preventive visits, it's like, I'm cool, it's good, you don't need to be there. But then that's when sometimes things come up and your spouses won't tell you what's going on, or your loved one won't share that information. So I think it's just a good idea to check in with your family members, and if people are, it's probably with me, if people are crazy enough to leave the pill bottles around, I pick them up and read them. What are you taking? How come the doctor gave you this? What's that for? So, a little bit of being inquisitive about your loved one, your mom, your dad. You want to know what they're being treated for so that you can then really be able to advocate for them at the proper time.
Thank you. So listen, older parents, when your kids are like, what are you doing? Don't blow them off. Don't fight. Let us help you. My mom's good. I go with her to the doctor. She's like, come on, let's go. And I was wonderfully blessed to have a mom who, my kids will say, tells too much, but keeps us abreast. Dr. Malone, can you address the disparities that seem to be, because it may not be, and you can help us with this, with Black women and hysterectomies, going straight to hysterectomy?
Oh, my goodness,
boy.
yes.
You need 2 microphones.
I do. I have a whole chapter. That's why I said my book is not just about menopause. It's about, again, all the conditions you might have. And you might wonder why I chose the names, because these are things that I used to hear my mother say, and I had no idea what they were. And so there's a chapter called Female Troubles. And part of female troubles is, I talk about fibroids. 50% of Black women will not make it to menopause with a uterus. Okay, and that's good news and bad news. Okay, tell you what the the bad news is, yeah, you have to have surgery. But usually what occasions that is also the fact that 80% of black women have fibroids. And when you get to perimenopause, which a sign, one of the things that happens in perimenopause is a lot of irregular bleeding. Sometimes it's too heavy, it's too long, it's all of these things. And when you have fibroids and you are entering perimenopause with some hormonal problems, it can be catastrophic. I mean, it amazes me the things that women will endure during that time. I'm like, girl, that is not normal. You know, the amount of blood that you should lose in a normal menstrual period over how many ever days you bleed is a half a cup. And I have patients that will say, I can do that in 15 minutes. That is why we end up with hysterectomies. Now, I'm one of 5 girls. 3 of my sisters have had hysterectomies in their 40s. Same thing, fibroids, bleeding, boom, you have a hysterectomy. But that was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and there are other things that we can do that will avoid hysterectomies in certain cases. And what we do know is that black women are less likely to be offered some of the non-medical, some of the non-surgical things that can be done, or the minor surgical procedures that can be done to control bleeding. But that's usually what occasions it. It's fibroids, it's bleeding, and the next thing you know, you've got a hysterectomy. And so I do have a section in the book that really talks to you, what's the difference? You know, why do you do one thing versus another, and what the alternatives are should you choose not to do a hysterectomy. But there's a little bit of good news about that, and this is something that gets back to the hormone therapy issue. I think the biggest reason why women don't do hormones when they are going through menopause is the fear of breast cancer. And that is misguided. It came from a study that was out 23 years ago, and we have been trying to walk that data back ever since, and it just never made it out there the way when you say cancer and hormones, that those two are associated. But this is something that I want you to know for women who have had hysterectomies. The same study that put in everybody's mind that hormone therapy causes breast cancer, the same study found that for women who have had hysterectomies, again, and who has more hysterectomies than anybody, black women, not only if you are taking hormone therapy, you only have to take estrogen, you don't have to take 2. And for women who take estrogen only, guess what they found? There is a 23% decrease in the incidence of breast cancer and a 40% decreased risk of dying from breast cancer, even if you get it. So let me say this, black women with hysterectomies who are symptomatic, unless you have one of the other contraindications, yes, you should. And a lot of times younger women get hysterectomies and they don't know, or your ovaries in or out, you know, your menopause may be earlier for you. So that is why, you know, if you've had a hysterectomy, then you should definitely put at the top of your list when you are symptomatic hormone therapy, because the thing you fear most is not the thing that's going to happen.
Thank you. I'm going to do 2 more questions because we're going to move over immediately following to the Family Life Center for the book signing and so forth. Now, here are the rules for when we get over there. This is a book signing on that side. Please, ma'am, don't get up to the author and start telling them the story about, so what happened at, being like, how Pastor tells the story at the woman who touched the hem of Jesus' garment, and he comically retells it, but he talks about, she said, first I went to, and then I went, and then I went. We're not going to do that. We're going to remember there's other sisters in here that want to speak to these dynamic sisters. There's a whole lot of black girl magic being sprinkled around, and so we appreciate you two so much for this. And I'm super excited that the black girl magic in this room right now is honoring she who had so much magic, Dr. Edith P. Mitchell. So, last two questions, and then our authors are going to be escorted over to the Family Life Center while we do some housekeeping things, meaning you all are not getting up. Translation, you're not following them when they go over. Please, both of you, talk to us about bone density and how that affects our health.
All right, so you may not know what a bone density test is, but you know what osteoporosis looks like. And you know what it feels like. You know, if you see anybody who's gotten older and they've gotten shorter, or they've gotten older and they start to bend over, or someone has fractured a hip or fractured a bone, usually in their 70s or 80s, that's osteoporosis. Now, there is this misguided perception, because this thing I was taught is that, in medical school, they said, well, Black women don't get osteoporosis at the same, we don't get osteoporosis. So they're not going to really screen for it. And let me tell you, osteoporosis is, you don't think about it, but it is preventable. It is something that a bone density that you can get. Right now, the current recommendation for getting a bone density, which just tells you whether or not you've got osteoporosis or what your bone structure is like. The current recommendation is 65. No. 65 is too late, simply because the average woman is menopausal at 50, and if you're Black, maybe sooner. You start to lose bone density, your bone, from the moment you are menopausal, and it's the lack of estrogen. So this is one more reason why, if you take estrogen, it prevents osteoporosis. It prevents hip fractures. But you have to start it before. It doesn't treat osteoporosis. So I think my practice has always been for women to get a baseline bone density at menopause. And if you're good, I'm like, good. See you in 10 years or 5 years, we'll do another one. But if it's low, you need to know that now. Why would I wait till you're 65 or you've broken something? Then we know that we can start interventions early. And hormone therapy, amongst the many things that it treats, other than just the symptomatic things, hormone therapy, or the estrogen component, decreases the risk of osteoporosis, hip fractures, vertebral fractures, which are the things that make you bend over like that because your vertebrae are generally collapsing. So yes, and I would say, again, it's one of those things where it's not racially determined. It is whether or not, if you are a small Black woman, you're at risk for osteoporosis. The other thing that Black women that we don't tend to pay enough attention to, is the fact that a lot of Black women are lactose intolerant, which means that you may have had a lifetime of being calcium deficient if you haven't taken calcium supplements. Darker your skin, the less you are able to absorb vitamin D from outside. But the reality is, none of us are outside that much, to be honest with you. So, vitamin D supplements. So those are the kinds of supplements that I think that are helpful. But again, remember, they don't treat osteoporosis. They should be just part of a normal dietary supplement. And don't let somebody tell you, because you're Black, you don't need a bone density. If you're a big bone person, you're probably good. But if you're small, you got teeny little wrists and teeny little ankles, you need a bone density.
Yeah, I cannot add much more to that. The only thing I will add is information from an insurance perspective. If you ever get a bill for a bone density test, you should challenge it. I had a situation where I have to confess I'm eligible for Medicare based on my age, but I'm working. So I don't have Medicare right now for health insurance. I have private insurance through my company. And because of my age, my doctor assumed that I had Medicare. So she coded the bone density as they code them for Medicare coverage. And I got a bill for about $565. I thought it was sort of preventive or ongoing to check me for things, as Dr. Sharon has pointed out. Well, it was about a year later. I was talking to my insurance company, and I know at the end of that call, is there anything else we can help you with? I said, as a matter of fact, there is. And I brought up this situation with the bone density. Now, I had gone back to my OBGYN doctor and said to her, why am I charged for this? And she admitted that it may have been a coding issue in her office, but they never fixed it. So when I explained it to the insurance company on the phone, they took all my information down. About 3 months later, I got a check for $565. So follow up, you pay a lot of money for your insurance premiums. Right. Hold these insurance companies accountable to what you are paying and what your companies are paying to cover you for health.
Right. And the other thing I would say, too, is that, make sure, again, back to family history, if you have a mother or someone who has osteoporosis, then a family history of osteoporosis can be used to justify getting a bone density earlier, too. You want to intervene early, not after the fact.
Thank you. Thank you. Here's the last one we're going to take in here. Is there a national directory of female doctors of color?
Well, in honor of Dr. Edith Mitchell, I must say that Dr. Mitchell, which has not really been spoken of so publicly today, she was a president of the National Medical Association, which many of you, if you don't know, that's an organization of African American physicians. And if some of you are so young that you don't understand why we have an NMA, it's because they wouldn't let us join the AMA. But many physicians belong to that organization that are of color, but many do not. So I really cannot tell you if there is a general registry of African American physicians.
But this is also a number that I want you to keep in your head. We are underrepresented in terms of the number of doctors, the percentage of doctors relative to the population. So right now, I think it's only about 6% of physicians are African American, which means that only half of those are women. So 3% for all of us is not enough. So I think if you're looking for someone, a lot of times, yeah, maybe NMA, but again, is there a big registry? Not that I know of, but that's a problem, that we can't. So when we tell you all these things and we're like, yeah, and you need a doctor who will sit there and talk to you and tell you and give you competent care and knows and stuff, and then you can't find them. And that's the reality. And to be honest with you, that's why when I left my private practice, and I'm talking to women all the time about menopause and perimenopause, and yes, go out there and advocate for yourself, and they can't find a doctor. They cannot find a doctor. And when you do, you find one that doesn't know what they're doing. So, that is why I think that the future will be how we deliver care. And it is going to be, that's why we do menopause care this way, because we realize that people can't find it. And I don't think it's unfair for someone just because of where you live or the community that you live in that you can't find a doctor. We're going to have to be a little bit more creative, and we're going to have to find, digital platforms that work. At Alloy, we now specifically have just started a Black women's outreach, because we said, you know what, these are the women who get this message the least, so we're not going to just wait on them to find us. We're going to find you. And we have a new wonderful young physician, Dr. Dombo, who is the head of the outreach. And so that's her job, to come out to places like this and to make sure that everyone knows how to reach us. And we have to realize that because there's so few of us, we're going to have to learn how to leverage the expertise of a few over many, many, many people. And it may not be one-on-one care. It may be that a lot of the things we're going to offload, there are going to always be things you're going to have to go in for, but there are a lot of things that you don't.
So listen to this. In celebration of National Doctors Day, a special pre-tape program will recognize physicians for their dedication, skill, and commitment to providing high-quality health care. The show will feature insightful conversations with doctors focusing on practical advice and reflections on the medical profession. The program will serve as an opportunity to bring greater awareness to WURD's Black Doctors Directory that is in process. Shout out to Jefferson for supporting that. And the air date is March 30th at 5 p.m. Eastern. So we ask, and look at God, he provides. Thank you all so much. The authors are going to go over. I can't thank Tiffany and Dr. Sam enough for just leading these conversations. And thank you, Dale, for your presence. I hope that you were blessed by being here amongst people who honor the memory of your mom and who are going to keep Jefferson honest, and we're going to keep at this. There will be a Dr. Edith P. Mitchell Women's Health Symposium next year as well. So to each of you who are here with us, for each of you who've been journeying with us all day long, thank you, thank you, thank you. And some of us are at the, running out of steam phase, but this has been incredible. And I am blown away by the gift that the Lord allowed Reverend Barnes and I to just come up with in the Olive Garden in Willow Grove. Had no idea we would be here doing this right now. I'm going to ask if we have any other physicians in the room, can you please stand up? Amen. We've got to make sure that we keep showing our young people our faces, because you can't be something that you don't see. And so I'm grateful for the presence of you all, for those of you who are here. Members of the Links Incorporated, if you would stand up, kind of shout out to the group. Thank you for your presence. And again, thank you to Jefferson Health for putting this at the top of your agenda. And so we're grateful. We talk about people bad when they don't do right? So we got to shout out when they do right. And Pastor and I were sitting there as we were listening, and he leaned over and he said something that is absolutely positively true. How many churches are doing this? Just real bringing it to the people and bringing it in a way that we can get it. And I'm not saying that to disparage, again, any other church. What I'm saying is I think we need to advocate for our people in all spaces. And so if you're not a member of Enon, encourage your church to consider providing this type of information to the masses, because we can't do it by ourselves. It takes all of us to make a difference. And so Pastor's going to come and give us some closing words. There won't be a benediction kind of thing, but he's going to close us out, and then we'll go over into the Family Life Center for the book signing. Thank you all so much for being here with us and for sharing in this time.
Would you again help me celebrate Dr. Waller and Reverend Evelyn Barnes for their leadership? Amen. As has been said, like our revival in the fall, there's not going to be a benediction, because we view this as a ongoing experience until next Saturday, when there's Women's Know Your Numbers. And so every night this week, there's going to be preaching. Every night this week, there is some sort of screening. Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. So we are going to keep health at the front of the conversation, while we are also celebrating God, celebrating what has happened in the life of this church, in the life of this ministry. And so I want to appreciate all of you. Thank you so very, very much. I've learned a whole lot tonight, and I ain't touching it. There are a couple of jokes that came up for me. I said, don't do it. And so we're going to close out with that. I am just waiting for them to get over. I do want to encourage you to go over and just let them know how much they have blessed us. Please take advantage of this. And we look forward to seeing you all. If you do not have a church home and need somewhere to come worship tomorrow morning, we will be here at 10 a.m. right here, and looking forward. But each evening, 7 o'clock, and the women that are preaching are some of the voices that for the last 25 years we have heard at our Completely Yes, well, they have heard at the Completely Yes conference. And so thank you so very, very much. Look forward to seeing you real soon. God bless you and God keep you. It's our prayer. Amen. Thank you. Hey.